Hi, everybody. I am very delighted to be a part of No Borders project, which is organized by Ines Baturo and Foundation in Bielsko-Biala, because what they are doing is wonderful network for putting together many international photographers, shows as well as competition, which is actually aiming to be presented during festival. I became a part of No Border because of my work, and over 30 years I have been working as a curator, art historian, publicist, gallerist. In the 90s, I have based the first institution which was focusing on photography, and it was based in Poprad, titled as House of Photography, and ran for 10 years in this beautiful city close to Tatras. Afterwards, it moved to Liptovský Mikuláš, which is again in northern Slovakia. Since 2012, I have been working as a director of the Gallery of Spiš Artists, which is located in another northern city, Spišská Nová Ves. As you might see on the first slide, I am in the middle with my dog Theo and surrounded by my colleagues who are contemporary staff of the gallery. And because these pictures are from 2018, as you might see, some of them already have been changed. So our gallery is governed by self-governing region. We are quite a large Renaissance building, which is giving a space for not only photography, but for history of art, as well as different other exhibitions which are related to interpretation of contemporary arts in its total scale of genres and forms. Annually, we are welcoming about 30,000 visitors, and we have got a lot of international and inland cooperation for different exhibiting projects and accompanying events. We are also a member of Anna Lindh Foundation. So we can have a look through some pictures which are documenting our specific projects, as you might see. And I will briefly get into our major programs, which are exhibitions. We are focusing on, as I mentioned, contemporary arts mostly, but also we are presenting different dialogues with the history of photography as well as photography itself. Photography is also a part of our collection, which is at the moment containing about 3,000 items, and photography is really a part of collection which we need to build up much more richer. You might see here a few numbers which are in Slovak. So annually we do about 21 exhibitions with around 100 artists from home and abroad. And our dramaturgy is based upon major topics like profiles of the artists mostly, also for the evaluation of the collection. And then we are very much working on many different topical presentations which are connected not only different genres of arts, but also history and contemporary artworks from Slovakia and abroad. Besides, we do about 250 programs in different program halls, which are oriented for public as well as for the schools. And at the same time, we are really giving many different opportunities for communication with artists, schools, and of course, art experts containing historian of arts, curators, educators, and so on. Here are a few slides which I would like to share with you. Since 2012, we opened two permanent expositions. We are looking at the slide of permanent exposition Hanula, which is the artist coming from Spiš region and whose works were given to the gallery as a gift of his family, as well as through transmission from museum collections, which is also located in our city. And actually, as you might see in these pictures, we also are working with collections in many different topical issues, including researches, of which is also second temporary exhibition, permanent exposition titled Terra Gotica or Gothic Root, which is containing only our collecting items. We are also having the spaces outside. Obviously, our exterior expositions are very popular. We also run the library, which is focused on major issues of history of art and theory of art. There are specific programs, which are talks, which are different presentations, or actually multimedia festivals, as well as our specific expertise work, which is focused on publication, different exhibition productions, acquisitions, as well as I mentioned, different cooperations within the curators, artists, and different schools. My challenge was to look and to talk about creative portfolios, which I received from the board of No Borders project. First of all, I would like to say that beyond of any creative photography, there is the idea, there is the concept, there is a kind of a strong visual interpretation of thoughts which are base for any kind of creative work. I will firstly go fast through all folios which I received for judging, and we may have a look briefly through the creations which we'll be talking about. At the moment, there are not too many of them, but at least we can have a look to all of them. That is the end of the last one. And I will go briefly back. First of all, we are talking about individual images. Of course, I need to say that any kind of judgment for professional portfolio reviewing is the final physical output, because that is the art piece. That is the art piece which should be physically judged and physically look at and discover probably some technical or conceptual items which should or should not be considered to be involved in the creative processes. But as we are looking at individual e-folios, I will talk just about pictures I might see. We can see here the water bottle floating the water to butterfly in the backstage of blue sky. And generally, the image itself is creating a slightly poetic atmosphere. I'm saying slightly because probably it was photoshopped. And on the other side, it has got mostly illustrative qualities. So I would be able to imagine it as a folio which is possible to put into some illustration of poetry or other literal word-based art. Generally, I can say that the kind of experiment is also very much strongly showing us the borders or no borders of computer and digital photography, where we can drive our imagination. The second picture is responding the self-portraiting or double exposures, which are bringing to us a dialogue of self. We might see in the history of photography many narrative tableaus which are bringing up together self-presentation and photography, which is in its program showing up any kind of self-presentings on photography, of course. We might see that the artist here or photographer here was driven by idea to work either with the double exposure or computer post-produced work, which brought us up the two figures, obviously of the same person, looking at each other. To me, it is a very good photography showing up the portraiture of kind of double personality or in a way of self-imaginary. Here we are getting to another very illustrative image, which we may read on different levels. First of all, we can see again, technically, the work with Photoshop and all the layers which are appearing on that presented picture is showing us the work of surfaces which are bringing up together the pieces of flowers and other details, provoking and giving us into mind feeling of scratches into the image. Technically, in the past, I would say it was use of chemicals, but probably here it was use of Photoshop program. But it gives us quite expressionistic idea where we can see quite thoughtful face on the bottom of the composition, whose head is blossoming into the very scary image of some jinn or spirit or kind of really ghostly school. And in that way, and that's why again this picture should really have got very good illustrative qualities, which should be related to any kind of literature like Edgar Allan Poe or whatever. As we don't know its physical structure, so it is very difficult to say how physically image is enabling to strong its message. But in a way, it is good work with poetical imaginary together with a way of using, of course, the good computer skills and giving us a very nice poetic message. Very similar to figural composite we saw two images before. Another figure is turning into very abstract symbol, of which her are turned into kind of very abstract mirror hanging from the upper hand. And in general, as we don't have the titles of these pictures, it is very difficult to interpret the aim of photographer who give us this folio to judge. But generally, again, it is expressive figurative motive which we can use as a self-mirroring and again put it quite a narrative contexts. Well, we turned into much more, let's say, humorous and advertising quality of picture, where it is really well done, photographic, figurative image, giving us a smile into face, because three guys on a picture are really having just as a basic funny message promoting clothing, and I'm not sure what bananas should bring us to us as phallic symbol, or it should bring us a kind of advertising for the fruity companies. But in a way, technical proposition of this picture showing us very well done and composed figurative image of three figures. But but looking for some deeper message, I would say that the content of the picture is really shallow and should be shown up as a very well done, funny satiric picture of these days. And from the figures, we switch into structures. These structures, which we can see here, is very difficult to define because it is just a game, as we might see, of the shadows and some forms. We don't know if these are flowers or the paper lists or a kind of any other materials which were traced by photographic shutter. But in a way, it is still life-made message which gives us just the idea of very strict structural composition, of which we can just guess was the content. But in a way, we also don't know to react if this is digital image or it was kind of work in a classical dark room with working on paper and of course of the film. So I would say very basic image, in a way giving the photographer opportunity, and it is not easy way, give opportunity to work with the shadows and forms. Well, here we are. The droppy pictures have been a kind of puzzle in the beginning of the medium, where the shutter must really click very fast, be enabling to capture the moment of water drops. Again, it is about structure to me, because we can see two different surfaces which are divided by this curtain of water drops, really watering around the picture, and especially giving to us just uncertain judgment of a very clean and clear backstage composite, which, as we look at it, remain as, or I'm sure it is, the wooden floor. But if the photographer would be thinking about much more poetic message, probably would work just within this curtain of the drops and not giving us so many narrative proportions. So good luck for the future. Anyhow, we got a quite complicated visual message here, as it is to me photography as the painting, and as we can see, this square, or actually like very geometrically strictly based up lines or strips, which are, I presume, are made up from photography and put in Photoshop or other technical device to bring us up this visually rich story divided into certain geometrical strips. And giving us also quite an optical illusion, as we might see that the picture itself is absorbing us into its center. So it is giving us the very special feeling. I would say it must be quite a hard work, and as a result, quite a good work, because now we may talk a lot about the very fragile borders in between fine arts and photography itself, because photography is already the fine art subject, which is bringing up endless opportunities and options, technically, of course, but also in terms of content and hidden messages beyond the form. I would say it is much more formal game, but it gives me a kind of feeling that a picture was made very thoughtfully, and probably photographer was trying to bring us up through these different stripes, completed visual and geometrically set up story. In a way, we might say that from the pictures we saw so far, probably it is one of the best fabricated. And here again, a kind of work in between the figurative motif, and on the other side, a joke of a man without with a structure of man being captured just through his deserted clothing. In a way, composition is well done. It is really giving us the figurative feeling, and it works with the space and its backdrops very well. But again, I would say it is much more about exercise as about the serious message, which, as I mentioned, for creative photography or fine arts photography, there must be message beyond any of the picture. Of course, illustratively, it has got a lot of very good qualities. So in general, it should be an image which should be really enabling to bring up interesting illustrative backdrop for word, for the art of the word. Well, another structures. Clearly, we can see here this game with the windows, light, and the curtain. As structure before, it has got qualities which give us absolutely total visual information where probably it was taken. At least we might see that this is a very gentle game in between light and movement of the curtain, and the curtain itself being confronted with the backdrop of the windows. And as again, I would say it is probably a kind of abstract composition, but on the other side, again, without the deepest messages which we are looking for, of course, in the fine arts photography. And the last picture from this series is again about the structure. As we compare it with the picture we saw before, which was, as I mentioned, it was this fragile border in between the painting and photography. Here we are much more narrative and much more real, because we can see that the photographer is playing the mosaics and putting together these mosaics from many different parts of the real wooden structures, and bringing us together just a kind of repetitive motifs of the wooden backdrop. In a way, I would probably, if I would be putting together a kind of visual rhythm in between photographs we have seen so far, I would say that this is very much close to the one we saw with drops of water which is watering the wooden floor, and in a way it is also about the structure, and again it is about the very realistic description of where it is and from which it is made. Much better is this triptych, I would say, where again we work with very narrative and clearly classified materials, as is somewhere in the building or on the pavements, and generally it brings us up a very nice geometrically made up observation of photographer putting together very different geometric forms, and therefore bringing us a kind of aesthetically nice story. That's it. Again, as for your information, as we talked about the folios, I will go briefly back so we can have a look again and just digest the short information. Of course, it is subjective statement, it is subjective judgment, which is growing up from a very long term of curatorial and photographic experiences as historian of art, and of course as a critic of art, which is very important for further artistic development. Anyhow, the second folio I'm going to judge as a part of the No Borders project is landscape. Not many photographs were put into this subject, which I am not surprised, because landscape itself is one of the most difficult ever genres in photography, and especially in contemporary photography. We might see many different variations of landscape photography, from its advertising qualities, the very realistic photographing, up to experimental photography, which is leading into subjects like new topography or experimental photography or photography of Dusseldorf School, which is bringing up also landscape to very abstract propositions. So let's have a look what we have in folio here. So you might see a very different kind of selection, and very few artistic pictures. So we will start with the first one, which is probably photography made from, we don't know, sandy or a kind of moory areas, of which the every artistic effect is brought up by saturation. So even though it is black and white, it is saturated, and therefore it is turning entire image into an abstract drawing. In that way, of course, I cannot judge strictly because I cannot see another work of photographer who is presenting this particular photography. And on the second hand, I cannot see, as I mentioned, its physical quality. So it is very difficult to judge the image, which really has got few major mistakes in, let's say, composition on the left side and so on. But in general, especially desaturation made it very abstract. So in a way, it is much more universal drawing as universal landscape in photography. The second image, I would say, is in the previous section of fine arts photography, is very literally, clearly narrative. This picture is fantastic for any kind of illustration, again, because it has got very strong qualities for adding typography or illustrating some issues like the time or the crowds or the emptiness or simplicity or whatever. But in that way, I would say that it doesn't absorb that expectation which I have got towards landscape folios, and it is the kind of really well-contented photography with the issue which should stop your breath. Anyhow, it is again showing us probably from Asian landscape a row of people which is crossing over some hill. Contrasted with the sky, and in many ways figures here looks like photographs, but I am not really enchanted by this photography, and I would say that it is very overreach. Here we are again in a very abstract form. I would say that from entire folio we've seen so far, probably this is the one which took my attention, and it is because of probably it's very quiet and peaceful composition. And secondly, there are a few elements which brought up my attention. Firstly, it is work with probably open shutter, because we can see the string of light which is really running through bottom of the image, which means that the photographer or whoever took this picture was able to wait for a few minutes or dozens of minutes to create photography which is giving us just a feeling of landscape, as it is based upon very bottomnal composition of misty, hilly form, as we can see, followed by really huge sky. And in a way, it really brought me up this comparison with few of the photographs we may see, especially in works of photographers, those are those school where they work with the form, and they are trying to find out the very meditative message within the picturing the landscape. Very difficult to judge final, because, as I mentioned, I am not sure if this photograph is made in 1 meter by 2 meters or it is just made in a format of postcards. Very difficult also to find out the final quality, which really is showing also the quality of the shooting. But through the essence of E format is really one which I like very much. Very similar photography to those we saw on the first row. And the only thing which is getting out the atmosphere of abstract or very pure landscape is the top of the hill, where we might see on its top probably just signs of figures. That means that it is a mountain climbed by someone, but in general, we can really see in this picture also a kind of abstract message, because even though the bottom hill is very much readable through its snow and rocks, on the top we can see a game with the sky, which is giving a kind of spots remaining us chemical processes in photography, which gives it a bit of mysterious atmosphere, and maybe it is just like very humid photo lens should be another kind of miracle. But in general, it is quite interesting composition. It is not, of course, the best of the ones, but in a way, giving us this measure of mystery and a secret. And what I like about is that it's not about these typical mountain photography images where you can really read entire figures which are on the top of the mountain as the victors of battle with the mountain, but in a way it has got very painty atmosphere. Well, another picture, this is what I said before, that it is illustrative picture, much more than a picture which I should be putting into my landscape favorites, because mountain photography is a photography which has got a very specific categories. And into these categories really should be brought also this narrative, which what we are looking at. I would say that mountain photography was for years very interesting exhibition, which was presented by Museum of Photography in Winterthur in Switzerland, and that also gave opportunities to confront many different genres of which mountain photography may bring into our attention. So I would say that overreach photography, of course, with difficult terrain and with aim to bring up, as we might see, through the misty atmosphere, also through the good composition, bring us up the mountaineering in its live stream. Well, and here we drop into romantics and the romantics of the mirroring in the waters. Very popular, very familiar selection for mountain photography. It is really a large water spaces, and these waterscapes, which we can see also, one of which we can see here. It has, of course, as in the previous image, as I mentioned about this mountaineering, well-composite men running through the hill, is also this image with very cultivated composition, very sensitive eye. And of course, obviously, we should categorize it into thousands of similar images with really good eye, good composition, and with a kind of mystery running on the left part of composite, because the mist doesn't allow us to see what is beyond that veil of white and mist. And here we have got quite a fun interpretation. Montages, any kind of classified mosaics in photography are popular, but not many times well done. I would say that this skiing image is well done, because we can see here a few opportunities which gives us montage or possibility to play or to finalize production in a computer, and it is well done photography of hills and shadows, also of the lift and hills, and in the end probably post-produced into this image of hilly waves and abstracts of cabins which are running through entire mountains sides. So I would say it is a good image. It is not the best image, but probably from the selection we saw so far, it is one of the best images we've got here. And again, we are running through entire images. I would say that my favorite one was this picture and the montage in the end, which we are getting through right now. As for conclusion, I would say that both fine arts photography, of many abstract, figurative, or any other genres, and landscape are very fragile genres in photography because, as I mentioned in my introduction, they need the concept beyond. And any kind of these clever pictures should brought up us the very deep message with well visual quality, and on the other side, with the, as we say, with the best eye and the best light. So good luck and good light.